Hello and welcome back to Practice What You Post. My name is Maddie, and today we have a fabulous guest that I'm so excited to introduce you to. So today we are joined with Ash from Blackwell West, which is a healthcare specific investigation company. Ash, thank you so much for joining us today. For anyone who has never heard of Blackwell and West, when I found your Instagram social media profile, the first thing that went through my mind was, wow, number one, I've never heard of this type of company before. But number two, I was like, this is actually such a good idea. So, if you were at a dinner party, how would you explain what you do and how did you end up specializing in healthcare investigations?
I'll start from the start. So before I started this, a bit of my background. So I have probably about 14 years or so experience in investigation from different areas. So initially I was in a law enforcement background, policing, so a lot of criminal stuff, and then I moved into the regulatory space. So I've been investigating all sorts of things, anything from like the most petty little things that don't really need any action, right up to the serious criminal matters or matters that require like they're tribunal worthy in the healthcare space. So everything in between there. So as a regulatory advisor, I saw a bit of a gap. I got obviously so many investigations on my desk, from the complaint itself became not an issue. So one in particular, the first thing we ask is, have you done an internal investigation? So with any facility, we ask the practice manager or the health practitioner themselves, have you done an internal investigation? And more often than not, if they're a smaller sized facility, like 20 or less, they don't have specific HR departments or an internal investigator themselves. So they'll try either to do it themselves or they won't do it at all. So on this one occasion, I got an internal investigation report, which was pretty much just a sheet of paper with two questions on it, in relation to a complaint. I don't even remember what the complaint was, but it kind of raised more questions than it answered. So I felt like there was a bit of a gap when it came to that internal investigation, specifically in the healthcare space, because a lot of practitioners, they've got their unique niche, like they could be a physio or an OT or whatever, a doctor, that's their specialty. But with running a business comes a whole other side that they're not really trained in. So I wanted to kind of bridge that gap to help them really, to do that kind of the awkward investigation where you have to interview staff or take statements, and ask awkward questions, usually from that smaller clinic setting. Everyone's quite friendly, like you've got a good team culture, and you don't want to sit your friend down and ask like
Mm.
what happened here, and they probably don't feel comfortable answering as well. So I wanted to be that in between to gather all the information that you might need to produce to a regulator if a complaint goes that far, or have us come in to maybe prevent it escalating to that. So that's where I kind of came up with the idea. It would be like saying, one of my staff has a sore back. I'm not going to fix it. I'm going to send them to like a physio or a doctor. So it's the same there. They're not an investigator. So why
Mm.
would they be doing that part of
Yeah.
the clinic, practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's so cool. And I love that you were like, okay, actually there is this gap and actually you're in the other side of the space as well. And I have a follow-up question for you as well. I guess, of course, we work with allied health professionals and quite large established clinics. And I see as well so much of the word compliance is kind of like thrown around, and a lot of individuals are quite confused about, I guess, compliance when it comes to posting on social media. And I guess what would you say would be like a common misconception or something that you've seen in your work when it does come to clinics' social media presence? What would you say is a common misconception or something that you've kind of seen in your perspective?
I guess with any healthcare profession, obviously there's your like APRA guidelines, and then the individual, the workplace policies and procedures, and then the relevant codes of conduct, which all relatively tie in together, and they're all pretty similar, right? But I think and I've seen a lot of people come undone, is that they could have the best intentions, but the best intentions don't mean compliance. So yeah, you could be the greatest at what you do, and you could have so much knowledge, but and have the public interest at the absolute like core of yourself, but if it doesn't fit with the guidelines, then that's how you've kind of come unstuck, even if you have no intention of that I've seen that happen before. And your
Yeah.
own opinion as well. That's been a big one. Yeah.
And so I guess to kind of follow on from that as well, what would you say that when people are posting with, good intentions and what they deem to be, oh, well, I had good intentions posting about this, so I thought it was going to be okay. And then that turns out that it's not okay. Where would you say they go wrong? Is the issue more so much that they have told, a junior staff member to make content for them? Is it that they've outsourced to an overseas agency that doesn't have the understanding of APRA? Is it that there is other, I guess, motivations in regards to posting, such as like trying to go viral? Where is that kind of, I guess, step where people are going wrong when it does come to socials, I guess, from the I've got good intentions, and then where they go wrong from that?
Everyone has a good intention. You're not actively going out there to, I don't know, go against public health advice, for example. So let's take the COVID time for an example, and obviously over time, opinions of that may have changed. Um, when some people have say posted thoughts and opinions on that, they come from a place of good intention and thinking they're doing really good for the public. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but they fall short when it doesn't fall in line with the guidelines that they're kind of bound by. Or the other thing is, and this is where a big change has come in with the cosmetic industry. So like posting fun videos. So it's just a bit of fun. Like we're gonna do a little dance. Here's a patient who's unconscious, but we'll do a little TikTok, and to them it's like, oh, this is great content. Like people are gonna love this. How shocking and how fun. But they haven't really thought it through. It seems about the content, what that means for the patient, how that might be perceived by the general public. There's a lot of elements that seem to be missed when they've posted things like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And I totally understand exactly that point. I think that what we've seen on our end is we've seen that there is this social feedback loop of this desire to go viral or to create those fun TikToks and to have this, like, again, this social validation. There is this, because they're jumping on to these types of things, let's make a little funny TikTok. There isn't that consideration of, is this actually compliant? Is this actually going to help someone? We recently saw a therapist. Now, this person wasn't regulated under APRA, but I know that a lot of people in the mental health space talked about this specific is that this therapist used a client story and a case study in trying to portray what type of therapist that they were. We've got different regulations, whether you're in Australia, whether you're listening in from Canada, or you're in the US or the UK. There is still this ethics that we need to consider. We have seen specifically over the last few years that more clinicians are coming online and into this space, and it's really shifted. I guess when there was no social media, you had advertising guidelines, and then obviously you've now got TikTok, the social media space. When it does come to compliance, have you seen anything, I guess, on your end where things have gotten tricky, where social media plays a role in how a clinic can be compliant?
It's been a funny journey with the whole social media things, like going back to like the silly videos they're doing. So, and you mentioned people want to go viral, and they kind of lose that it being about like good health practices and things like that. They want to be seen, and they want like patients, which is all well and good. But I was reminded of another story. I think it was an American, where the nurses were videoing them around, like, I think it was a gynecology office or something, where, you know what I'm, yeah. So where there was obviously females have been examined, and then like bodily fluids are left behind, and they're kind of like posing with that. So yes, the patient isn't there. They could have seen 30 patients in a day, so you may not know who the patient is, but they forget the connection to the patient. I saw that nurse today. She did my examination. She was there. That could be me. How embarrassing. But within the, like, say, the regulatory space, with all those things coming out, and like the cosmetic surgery issues with the dancing and TikToks and things, there's been a change. I think it was like 2022 or 2023, the introduction of a more proactive regulatory compliance department to kind of focus on that, specifically around cosmetic surgery, because that was a big issue. So that's a lot of the advertising changes have come in because of that. Yeah, cosmetic surgery, big one. But then there's obviously, you've got your general guidelines for advertising, and then your cosmetic surgery ones, which come in two parts. I think there's like a general cosmetic surgery, and then a high risk non-surgical guidelines. Yeah, that's been a change.
Yeah, wow. And then I guess that actually brings another point into my mind, is talking a little bit about like what you said about how, you know, if you're a patient and you then go onto social media and you see the nurse that you saw, you know, making these inappropriate, you know, content, that obviously that going beyond, you know, unethical, but also how this is impacting reputation, and also kind of thinking, oh, your behaviors follow you online, and how this impacts your reputation as a practitioner. I guess like when we're thinking about like also managing staff members and how staff members are showing up, and how this is also reflecting in the clinic space, I guess vice versa. We've had solo practitioners that have come to us that have left their clinic because of how their clinic would show up on social media, and they said, we don't want to be associated with this clinic. What is your perspective on that, when we're thinking about like staff management, or I guess things happening in the clinic that's related to social media?
I think if you're the practice manager, then you've got your own obligations to keep tabs of what's going on as well. I guess that's probably where your team comes in handy for those type of things. Yeah, like it's a funny one. So, for example, those nurses, I'm pretty sure from what I read, they all got fired in the end, that group. So there's such risk to not only your career with this specific clinic, but with your registration. And there's so many kind of things that can happen with that if you're not compliant, or even if you're not the one to post, like it doesn't matter. Is that you there? Are you in your scrubs? Are people going to know that you're a nurse? Are they going to feel like they need to take your advice, or is it going to, I don't know, show negatively on the clinic, on the profession itself? You have to consider those things.
Mhm.
Yeah. So social media, it's kind of scary in a way. So I'm kind of like, if in doubt, don't.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. And I do think that when in doubt, we see that there are so many clinics and clinicians that will end up posting very cringy kind
Mm,
of content to go viral. They chase these vanity metrics,
mm,
and chasing vanity metrics is so 2017. It's so 2017, right? It's just not that space. And I totally agree with you on that one. I think that it is a very scary space, and for us, we want to make sure that whether it's our clients or anyone that we're doing strategies for, rather you be on the safe end and have a really good reputation
mm,
than you being like, oh, well, I'm going viral, because going viral, it doesn't always attract the attention that you want either.
mm.
Because polarizing content is what goes viral, which then like kind of like sends me into my next question for you is, I guess, when we are looking at the type of content that is going out there, I guess in your experience, there was a clinic or clinician that did post up something online that was not compliant under the guidelines. What does the clinic need to be aware of to ensure that it doesn't become well, I think just to safeguard their social media when it comes to the reporting or getting a restriction placed on on a license? What has been your experience in that space?
I think that it's a funny one because there's obviously you can post, like you can advertise on social media, and that can count for anything, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a letter sent out. That could be any social media platform counts as like social media
Mm-hmm.
or advertising. And then you've got the other side of, say, your personal profile.
Mm-hmm.
Is anything really private? Not
Mm-hmm.
really. So
Mm-hmm.
I've seen like a lot of things come in where, say, a nurse has had differing opinions to what the standards are,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a personal profile. So
Mm-hmm.
you'd think, I'm cool. You're not advertising like your clinic say, but you're advertising an opinion around the healthcare space.
Mm-hmm.
People screenshot things and they do send them through. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another one to think about as well, because you might not even be registering that that's something that a regulator might see. It definitely
Mm-hmm.
is, and I've seen that a
Mm-hmm.
lot. Just like reams and reams of it could be a picture at a rally, and if you're in scrubs, it's like, well, the connection's there that you're a healthcare
Yeah.
practitioner of some sort, so people are going to look to you for that
Yeah.
advice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, even just words, like it doesn't have to be a picture, it could be words, anything like that. Um, and safeguarding clinics, it's you've got to keep up to date with the current guidelines because I feel like they
Mm.
change so often as well. So keep
Yeah.
up to date with that and really like read into it because I don't know, there's a lot of things that maybe aren't super clear. So that's where I'm like, when in
Mm-hmm.
doubt, maybe don't. You're
Mm-hmm.
safest if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, really read the
Mm-hmm.
guidelines. Obviously, there's the APRA guidelines, there's the national law, which health
Mm-hmm.
practitioners are obviously bound
Yeah.
by, and then there's the Australian consumer law as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Mm-hmm.
all pretty similar, but like take note, take note of all of those.
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. We just have created an upper advertising guidelines
Mm.
course that unpacks all that, and that's exactly what I say as well. Is I think that there's also this misconception where it's like, oh, all I have to worry about is APRA.
Mm.
Actually, you also need to think about ACCC.
Mm.
And I've also seen what's been going on with like TGA as well,
Mm.
especially if you are selling products, or I've seen recently where, especially for injectables, that there's been some stuff going on there as well. So I totally am on the same page with yours as that one, because you need to be across all these documents. You need to be aware that, especially if you are an example that I gave was, if you're going to be posting up a promotion and you're saying we've got this deal going on, whatever it might be, and you don't have all the terms and conditions. And so I think a lot of the times, like, oh, well, under ARPRA, post this. You need to think of ARPRA, you need to also think of the ACCC. Something else that you brought up, which was super interesting, is messages as well. There was a recent clinician that I saw this all unfold on social media. My inbox was going off about this. There was a clinician that had sent hate to an influencer, and this influencer ended up posting the screenshot online. And this influencer, has a very big profile, and so because I followed them on my personal page, I saw that. And then the messages were just completely, like, it's discriminatory, it was hateful. And this clinician was like, they did not think that they did anything wrong. And there was so many people that reported this clinician to ARPRA, because actually, if you are a health professional, then I believe you have a responsibility at the end of the day in how your public profile and how you're engaging with the public online. So I think as well, people screenshot everything. I even screenshotted all of those messages and linked all of that in a report, because I was like, actually, you shouldn't be speaking to people like that. If you could give one piece of advice to an allied health professional or a clinic director, what would be one thing that you would hope that someone listening could, walk away and do this week, or I guess do differently moving forward?
I guess, and I go back to something I said earlier, the words best intention don't mean compliance. And that could be social media, that could be how you interact with a client, that could be how you run your business, the HR side. That could fit any little box you want to put that into. So yeah, best intentions don't mean compliance. So you could be the greatest at your chosen profession, but there's some things that can undo all of your great work without you even realizing. So, for example, the unintentional poor use of social media, or the processes and the governance systems within the clinic itself. So the takeaway, and if you had to do something this week, would be to stop and have a hard think about that. And if you haven't ever turned your mind to that, that's probably a red flag. you probably need to do that. And even better, like you've kind of said all the things that you need to focus on. There's different bits of legislation, there's codes, there's ever-changing guidelines. That is time consuming. Add on your wanting to go viral social media. That's another job in itself.
Yes.
So to stop and think about those things, and maybe reach out to a professional that can do that for you. Like your profession, whether you're a physio or a doctor or whatever you've chosen, like that's your thing. So now, though, there is kind of an expectation that you then have to be an investigator. If something goes wrong, you have to know how to write the reports. You have to know the law. You have to be on top of the social media. Like, there's so many things to do when you're already so busy. So I would just stop, have a think, and reach out to the correct kind of avenue to help you with those things, because that will mitigate any risk. And that's what you want. And that's what the regulator wants. Like, they don't want the risk. Like, risk to the public is the big thing. So if you can mitigate that before anything happens, then you're golden, and you can continue being the greatest physio or doctor or whatever you are, and have that kind of weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually such a nice little golden nugget. But Ash, thank you so much for joining us today on Practice What You Post. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so glad that I found your social media profile. I'm I just think what you do is so interesting, and it's just such an interesting perspective. And when I came across your page, I remember saying out loud, wow, this is such a good idea. I just think that what you're doing is really great. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the third episode of Practice What You Post. I have some really exciting things up my sleeve for the next episode coming out in the next fortnight. With how the show works, new episodes come out fortnightly, and you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on our next episode. Take care of yourselves, and remember to keep practicing what you post.